As long as it works, it works.
Yeah, as long as it works. You look good. You look good.
We're
Let me
doing
get y'all two in here. I'll get y'all rolling. Everything looks good, Derek. Everything sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Y'all ready, guys?
We're doing good.
All right. I like when everything's working the way it's supposed to. Okay. Sorry for the noise. I got my AC running back here, so it's loud as hell. But here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're live.
Hi everybody, how you guys doing? You're watching and listening to Between Two Worlds Radio. I'm your host, Eric White Sky Cloud. And tonight I have a very good person, good friend that I've heard so much about. My good friend Johnny Enoch has mentioned about this guy for such a long time, and I became good friends with this man. His name is Jordan Maxwell. He's actually a person that I guess you'd say deals with the secrets of the world controlling. Basically I guess in one way I want to say he's like a philosopher. He's a researcher, but when this man does his research, he's so deep into it, it makes you kind of like, ooh, oh my God, now what's going on here? Is this conspiracy? So it makes you think. So, and yet Jordan has these cool things he wants to share with our listeners as well as our viewers. There is something really great about this because it even relates to symbolism of words, how they're spoken, what our life is like, even how we live and walk and talk our daily world. Because if you look at something that relates to the law, to I guess you'd say in any kind of force across the world, in the military, and even including UFOs, Jordan has a lot of information for you. This man's been doing this for such a long time. I want to welcome Jordan Maxwell. How you doing, sir?
Thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some time with you. You and I had a great conversation for a while back there, and you've been traveling a lot, I guess to say, all across the world, because what you and I have been discussing earlier, you met so many great people that are in any type of, relationship of industry, as well as Hollywood, you name it, you've been there. But I was so curious about what you've been involved in, because at the very beginning when you started, does this relate to you being involved in UFOs first before you got into the philosophy of it, or did you?
Yes.
Okay.
When I was a very small child, about 7 and 8 years old, I got involved with the idea of extraterrestrials, of ETs being here on the earth. And I started having experiences with them coming into my room as a child. And so I realized then that I'm not the only life form on this earth. There's a lot of other strange things living on this earth with us that we don't even see and have no idea that are even here. So I came into this very legitimately interested in the extraterrestrial presence, which involves the UFOs. But that started back when I was like 7 and 8 years old. I began having those kind of experiences. But it wasn't until I became 19 years old that I ended up in Los Angeles. And I met, I don't know if I ever told you the story of my girlfriend that I met. Did I ever tell you that story?
I'm not sure if you did. But I know you met up with a young lady that was supposed to be an alien.
Yeah, well, I met this young lady in a restaurant, and it's a long story. I'll make it short. It was in a little restaurant in North Hollywood is where I ended up when I left home. I ended up in Los Angeles, and I ended up in a little town called North Hollywood. And on Saturdays and Sunday mornings, I only lived about 2 blocks from the downtown, just a little small Mickey Mouse little place called North Hollywood, about 10 miles north of the city of Hollywood. That's what they call it, North Hollywood. But, and so I went in for breakfast, but the place was crowded. It was on a Saturday, and the place was just standing room only, crowded. But there was one seat at the counter And so I went over and sat at the counter, and I happened to be sitting next to a young lady. She's about 17, I'm 19. And so we started talking. Come to find out, we both lived on the same street, a couple of blocks from each other, a block or so from each other. And so she and I started meeting on Saturdays, and Sundays we meet. She'd walk downtown, and I would too, and we'd have breakfast at the same little restaurant. And then we would walk around town, go to movies or whatever. And then when we would walk home, I got home first because I only lived 2 blocks from town. She lived about 3 blocks from town. So she lived another block further than I did. I didn't know exactly where it was. I just know it's only a block away. And so one night, one night she came over to my place about 10 o'clock at night. She said, my dad wants to see you. And I told her, I said, I'm not interested to talk to your dad. I got nothing to say to him. And
oh,
she
boy.
Said, no, don't blame it on me. And so she said, no, my father is a very important man, and he's got something he wants to tell you. And you better come. He needs to tell you something. I thought that sounded strange. Why would somebody I don't even know, never even met, wants to talk to me?
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So I followed her home. And when we were walking up to her house, he happened to be coming out the front door by chance. And when he saw us, he motioned for us to come in. And his mannerisms, there was something about him that I knew was not normal.
Yeah.
And I could feel it in him. There's just something not normal about this man. And I could feel it. And the way he said, come on in, I was thinking, I don't know if I want to go in. And so then I figured, well, it's her father. It's her father.
The shotgun's on the other side of the room. Don't worry about it. Walk in.
Yeah, right. As long as you keep him over there. Right? Yeah. And so I went in, and 2 girls, she had a little sister about 10 years old. And the 2 girls sat on the floor by the fireplace, and there was a long sofa, and so he sat on one end of the sofa, and I sat on the other end. The mother was in the kitchen, but I never saw her that night. And so he was talking to me, just making small talk, asking me if I was working and how I liked living in California, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was feeling a lot better being around him, although I knew there was something strange about this man, but I was feeling better because at least he's talking about things I can relate to. And then after a few minutes of talking, he said to me, you remember back in Florida where you came from when your dad built that new back porch? Remember when your dad built the new back porch? And that frightened me, and I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend, but it scared me to death.
You have a stalker.
How does he know that? Because my dad did build a back porch.
Yeah. And
he knew about it, and that scared me. I was thinking, how would he know that? And then he said to me, he said, and remember your dad built the back porch with green lumber, and because it was green, it smelled funny. Remember that? And I thought, my God, who is this guy? Because he was right. My dad did build the back porch out of green lumber, and it did smell funny. And then he said to me, he said, remember you were about 8 years old, and you were supposed to be in bed sleeping, and you got up out of bed, and you went out in the back porch. Remember that? And the full moon was out. The moon was very full that night. And you sat on the back porch, and with your thumb, you picked the wood. Remember how you picked the wood with your thumb to smell it? Does it smell funny? And you were using it like a toothpick. He said, remember when you did that? And by this time, I was really scared. I had no idea in the world what was going on. And he said, well, did you do that or didn't you? I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, how would I know that? How do I know that? I said, I don't know how you know that. And he says, I know that because we were there. We saw you. And I said, who are you talking about? We were there. And what are you talking about? You were there. I said, I didn't see anyone. He said, no, you didn't need to see us. We saw you. You didn't need to see us. And I said, who are you? What are you talking about? And he said, you've always liked the idea of studying UFOs and extraterrestrials and aliens and all that kind of stuff, haven't you? You've been interested in that all your life, haven't you? And I said, yes, I have. He said, yeah, I know. We've been watching you for a long time. And he says, and would you like to see some UFOs up close tonight? And I said, yeah, I would love to. And he said, well, that I can do for you. That much I can do. Come on with me. Mm-hmm. And I said, where? Where are we going? He said, just come with me. And I kind of hesitated. He said, look, you said you wanted to see UFOs, right? Yes. Then come with me. I'll show them to you. And so I looked at my girlfriend, and she's smiling because she's looking at me as if she wants to know, what am I thinking about her father? Uh-huh. This is nothing to her. She just wants to see how I'm accepting it. And
the
so
big response is like, oh my God, now what do I do?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, this is the kind of girl I got mixed up with. Her father's talking about some strange shit. Makes no sense to me.
A typical 1960s movie.
Yeah, it is. Just like one of those sci-fi movies.
Sci-fi movie.
So I went out in the front yard with him, and the two girls followed us out. So there's four of us out in the front yard about midnight in North Hollywood, California, just about 5 or 6 miles north of the city of Hollywood. There's a little town called North Hollywood, and that was back in 1959. And we go out there, and he looks up in the sky. It's a summer night, about midnight, and he starts talking, inaudibly talking. His mouth is moving. He's talking to somebody, but there's no sound. And then he looks at me, and he said, they said they'll be coming from southeast. They're coming southeast. They're going north. Mm-hmm. And they said they'll be coming over the mountain, right over here. They'll be coming. He pointed to the mountain. They'll be coming from here, this mountain. They'll be coming here in about 2 minutes, they said. Mm-hmm. And I said, who are you talking to? And he said, you said you wanted to see UFOs. Yes. Well, just wait. They said they're coming, and they will see you in a minute. And sure enough, about a minute and a half later, minute and a half to 2 minutes later, 3 glowing circular objects the same size as a full moon in the sky, not a little light, full moon size. Mm-hmm. 3 of them come in a triangle formation and came over our heads and stopped. And the thing I remember so vividly about it is that the bottom of those circular craft, whatever they were making no sound whatsoever, nothing. And they were able to come slowly, and they came over us slowly and then stopped right over the top of us. The bottom of each one of those crafts was like a pie cut in 6 or 8 slices. Yeah. Each slice was a different color, and they were circulating around. Not so much as to blend the colors, but you could see those different colors. But the one thing I remember mostly about it, they were laser colors. I didn't know what a laser was back in 1959, but they were laser colors. They were very, very vibrant colors. The greens were just incredibly green. The oranges were mind-blowing orange. Incredibly colors circulating on each one of these circular objects. Mm-hmm. And he reaches up and starts talking to them again. He said, they said they'll be going now, but they'll see you later. And I said, who are you? What are you talking about? And he said, they said they're leaving. And they did. They started to leave very slow, and they went northward. And we watched them as they went northward until they passed over the mountain range, and they were gone. And he said, they were beautiful, weren't they? I said, they were gorgeous. That was incredible. Who was that? And he said, that's us. You said you wanted to see UFOs, and you believe that there are aliens here. Well, that's why we're here. That's why. And then he says to me, and why are you in California? Why did you come here? And I said, I don't know why I came here. I just wanted to come. And he said, that's right. We brought you here. I'm the one that brought you here. And he said, because we've been watching you for a long time.
You know, that's the same similar story as mine, because back in 1967, in Manitoba, I lived in a small town called Brandon, very small city. I was only
I know about it.
8 years old, 9 years old, and yeah, no, sorry, nine. No, so was I 9 years old? 67, 66. Yeah, I was 11. I was 11 years old. Anyways, when I was looking out, like I don't remember waking up. I remember standing at like this is like 6 a.m. in the morning. I remember looking out the window, or at least I thought I was. Then suddenly I'm outside the house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing outside and I'm looking into the sky and I see this beautiful, like it looked like an orb, but it was shooting colors like rainbows across the sky. And I got really excited, but yet somehow I don't know why I felt like somehow time was missing, because I remember looking out the window and then being outside, and then all of a sudden I'm running back inside trying to get into the house. But meantime, my dad and my mom never locked the doors back then, because you can walk in, walk out. You didn't need to. I walked into the house, and this was summer, around beginning of spring, summer. And I remember running up into my mom and dad's bedroom, and I said, "Mom, Dad," and my dad never woke up. My mom did, and I said, "I just saw something in the sky, and I don't know what it was, because I was a kid. We never had I didn't have TV then. We didn't have the TV like most people do." So I said, "There's something in the sky," and my mom says, "Oh, what do you think it is?" And I said, "I don't know, but it was really." And she says, "Well, maybe it's a plane." I said, "No, Mom, that's not a plane." I said, I saw it, and it just looked at me as if it turned, and it shot across the sky really quick. And so then after my parents got up, and my dad went to work, and my sister was with my grandmother, and my mom says, "Come with me downtown. We're going to go downtown, go do some shopping." So my mom didn't have a car then. My dad had a little Volkswagen, but he was at work. And my mom said, "We're going to take the bus." So back then, those years, back in the 67, city buses don't have radios. They didn't have nothing. I mean, basically, you get on the bus and that's it. And I guess we were just the first people getting on the bus. So my mom, we dropped our coin in. My mom sat in behind the bus driver. I'm across from her at the front. He had his transistor radio sitting on his dash, and he had the news going on. And at the same time, it said, they said on the news that there was over 1,000 phone calls at the TV station and the radio station that there were sightings of UFOs going across the sky. Over 1,000 phone calls. Now, a regular common telephone, they could not handle it, because people are still calling in throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
So my mom looked at me and she says, "I'll never doubt you again." I said, "Told you, Mom. I told you what I saw," right? That's the beginning of I strongly feel that I was already on the ship, but I don't remember much being there. All I remember is looking out the window, and then I'm outside the house. I don't remember even waking up out of bed. I'm not just looking out the window. So I feel like there's time taken, like it's mixed, drop, gone, out there, you're there.
That's what I think happens, yeah.
Yeah,
so I think you're right.
It's very possible maybe your friends took me. Whoa! Anything's possible, right?
Absolutely.
So
anything is possible.
Anything's possible. But later on through the years, as I got older, I remember missing lots of time again when I moved to the farm. When we moved from the city of Brandon, and then we moved to Alberta, and again I was more involved in the always looking to the sky. As a kid growing up, suddenly you start going like this all the time. I don't know why. I keep looking up. I'm always looking up, being on the farm.
Me too.
And every night, even when I leave this house, if I go outside at night, I'm looking and see where they are. I just can't keep my neck down. You gotta go like, okay, where are they now?
I am always looking up. Always.
Yeah. So the important part that I want to ask you is when you met up with them, and after the ships took off, but did you ever spend more time with them that you were on the ship, or did you get a chance to have to experience it at all, or did they come back and see you again later?
Oh yeah, there's a whole incredible story that opened up then and began to cover my life. All kinds of things were happening, and but the family, it was the father and mother and the two girls. And so on Saturdays, I would walk down. It was only a block away. I'd walk down to see my girlfriend, and I became part of the family. I was always welcome to come in and have breakfast with them and lunch, and we go shopping and whatever. And so I was just accepted as part of the family. And one Saturday, I went down to their home, and they're gone. The house was wide open with no furniture. Everything is gone. They had moved out and didn't even say a word to me. They didn't tell me they were going. My girlfriend didn't come up and say they were going. Nothing. They just left.
Just left.
I never saw them again. Never saw them again.
Wow. How old do you think? How old do you think that you and her were? Was she really of her age, or do you think she was much older looking, but much older too?
She was probably about 17 to 18 years old. I was 19 to 20 at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was about 19. She was about 17.
Did she ever mention her age of
No.
Thinking that maybe she could be older than you by time?
No, I don't think so. She never appeared that way. She just appeared as a nice, sweet, young 17-year-old girl I liked. We were kind of boyfriend, girlfriend. And so when they left, I was shocked to see that they had gone without telling me anything. But I look back on it today, and now I understand what happened. He had done what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to bring me to California and get me started on this subject to get me going, and then his job was done. He has to move on. But he did do that. He got me started into the extraterrestrial UFO field back in 1959. And then when he left, he's gone. But that was okay, because I already had pretty much got into the UFO field because of talking to him and seeing what I saw and having other experiences. I was pretty well locked into this whole new world of knowledge that I didn't even know existed about extraterrestrials and UFOs. And so that was one incident that got me started. And he told me, he said, I'm going to give you something. I'll give you a book. I want you to read this book. And he said, it's going to start you on your journey in this life. I'm going to start you on your journey, where you're going to go and what you're going to be like and what you're going to do for us. You need to get started tonight. So he gave me a book, and it was called The Complete Works of Charles Fort. The Complete Works of Charles Fort. Still can find it today, easy at any bookstore. It's still a very big seller today in the esoteric and occult field. Complete Works of Charles Fort. It's an extraordinary book. And he got me started, boy. When he gave me that book, it just knocked me out. The book was all about, it's a very thick book. It's actually 3 books in one. And the book was about all of the strangest things that have ever happened in this world, in which there was no explanation for at all. Things which nobody understood, nobody knows why, nobody understood it, but it did happen. And so it itemized all of these things that happened that nobody could ever explain, and then gave you the footnotes, where to find the article, who wrote the article, what date was it, what paper, what newspaper, what magazine. So he outlined footnotes on every paragraph, and every paragraph was something new that happened that was like the other one. And it was a fascinating book. You really ought to get it for yourself today. It's still around today. The Complete Works of Charles Fort.
Well, I'm gonna see if I could find it out there. It'll be interesting to read.
Oh yeah, very, very interesting, very. And so I realized that he got me started, and that was it. He had nothing else to do, so he was gone.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm bored. See you later. Yeah.
That was basically the way I took it. He came in to contact me, to get me started, And then he said, that's it. He moves on. He's got other things to do now.
Do you, Jordan?
And
Do you think you were the only person that they chose to contact, or do you think there are others like you that had similar visitations?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind there's many others like me who have similar situations and similar stories. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There have been many people. I know because I'm talking to one right here. I'm talking to you. You've had those kind of experiences.
I did, and also
well, I know that I'm not the only one.
No, not at all. And there's a friend of mine that passed away. She passed away a couple years. I would say about 2 years now. Her name was Shirley Klein-Karsh, and Shirley was in her 90s, 94, 95 when she passed. But she told me her story that when she was taken. Well, not say taken. I'm going to quickly tell the story, but she was the passenger of the car with her first husband, and they were in Vancouver, BC here, and she was driving downtown, just going downtown, and she said something in her head said to her, get out of the car and go towards this store. So she just told her husband, stop, let me out. I need to go to this secondhand store. So her husband, she said, I'll call you. I'll come back in a half an hour, she says. So he said, okay. So he went off, did his thing, and she went across the street. She walked into the store. As she walked in and she looked around, all you could see a whole bunch of old things and secondhand goods and furniture and stuff. And the guy was coming out from behind the counter, and as he looked towards her, and the first thing he said was, "It's about time you got here, Shirley. You're late." And she looked at him like, "Do I know you? No, you don't know me, but I know you." And then he started saying that she has to do what you do. She has to be the messenger. But their words were, they would give her these. They look like little credit card looking size of credit cards, but they're hieroglyphics, and they're all each one of them. They're done. There's 8 of them. And she said that these are called memory cards. These are going to help her see what she has to see as far as her work is concerned. And she said, but there'll be years later, you'll find someone, and his name is White Sky Cloud. You need to find him, and when it's time, and then he will decipher these 6 cards from the 8 for you. Now, the year that she did it was 1964. Now I was just a baby kid, right? So it took her to the year 2000 to find me. She had to wait till
40 years or so.
Yeah, but when I showed up, here's the interesting part. Before going any further, now she wasn't sure about these cards that she received. Now here's one thing I didn't say. It was a flat screen TV on the wall. Flat screen TVs never existed back in 1964.
That's right.
And what he did, she watched him reach into this flat screen TV and pull the cards out and handed them to her, as if it absorbed it from his hand inside coming out. And that's what she told me, and that's what she told everybody in the room. Now, the year 2000, a whole bunch of friends of mine said, well, it was my birthday at the time, and everybody comes over to my house and said, Derek, we want to take you to this UFO conference. You need to come down to the UFO conference in Cloverdale. You need to see this. And I said, well, who's going to be there? Well, Shirley Klein-Karsh. And I said, well, who's she? And they said, you have to come. We're going to buy your ticket. And I said, oh, okay. So I went, and I was in the second row. The place was packed, full house, right? So I'm sitting here, and I'm looking around, and see some people that I recognize and some people I don't know. And there's a bit of that, like people will joke about, like they're even though they spent those $50 for a ticket, and they're sitting there thinking, oh, she's crazy. Some are thinking they're crazy. She's crazy. When she tells her story, they don't know what to believe, yes or no.
Yeah.
But here's what got my attention. Because I sat there and I got my arms crossed. I thought, okay, what's she going to tell me that I don't know? Well, here's what happened. Because as she was introducing herself, in the first 10 minutes, people were some were listening, some weren't. Then suddenly I can hear a hive of bees. Like I could hear as if I feel like I'm actually inside of a beehive. And I hear
Yeah.
bees go, I mean, inside the beehive, and going like, what's going on? And I'm looking around, and suddenly there's this stops. The whole world stopped. Everybody froze. Nobody moved. Everybody was in pause. I'm looking at it, and the girl that bought my ticket, sitting there, and her mouth was half open, like. And she stayed that way. Nobody moved. All the laughter disappeared. Everyone, or the smiles, or whatever have you, their expressions, everybody froze. Time stood still. I'm looking around like this. And then I'm looking up at Shirley on the stage, and she had her hands crossed like this, where your hands are, Jordan. And then suddenly she went like this. She goes, "Are you Derek?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she says, "Are you White Sky Cloud?" I said, "Yes, I am." She says, "I need to meet you after this is over." Okay, sure. And then she went like this, and everybody unfroze. I went, holy crap, she's for real. She froze the whole room.
That's the kind of people I have met. Those kind of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So later on down the road, I came to her home. I was very fortunate that she brought out those cards, like I said, and she wanted me to take one and to hold it and to translate it. So basically the translation was going through me. I had to speak, and then she would record it. Whatever came out came from that card. And I was getting images, and I was like, oh, wow. And I could see things that no one would ever understand. I even remember to this day what was in those cards. She would not let me read the 7 and 8 card. She says because it relates to her importance. Now, when she passed away, a couple of years later, just about, let's say maybe about 2-3 months ago, I called her daughter up and asked her whatever happened to her cards.
Mm-hmm.
Her daughter said her mom put them in a safety deposit box, but when she went to go get them, they were gone. And then so she checked the bank and see if they actually were signed out. Not signed out. Nothing happened. So Shirley told her daughter, she said, don't bother looking for them in the safety deposit box, she says, because they already came to get them. They will walk in, take them out, and disappear. She says because she's done her work. But she says they're taking me home, but they're taking me to their planet. Shirley went. Now, Shirley asked me many years ago, she says, how long will I live till? I said, you'll live to about almost 100. And she believed it. So when they did come and get her, Shirley, her daughter said she was talking to the extraterrestrial beings in a room where there was a nurse. And the nurse froze. Her daughter walked in. The nurse was not like nurse was like this, and her daughter walked in. But her daughter never got frozen. She just walked in and seen her mom chatting it up with an extraterrestrial being. Then the being walked away and walked through the freaking wall. Not a door, a wall, and disappeared.
Yeah.
And Shirley was actually in a medical bed. She was about to leave. And basically they're giving her, like saying, we're going to come get your spirit later on after you leave. And then she smiled and passed away. That was it.
Wow. Yeah, well, see, there have been many of us who have been contacted. Many. And so I know a lot of people have condemned me and criticized me for being a devil worshiper and all of that kind of stuff. I said, no. The same thing happened in the Old Testament in the Bible, where angels came in to do something and took a person with them, or the person saw them do this or that. That's okay. That was to have to do with God. That's okay. But if that same God did something with me, you call me demonic.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're saying that the same God that did that cannot do it today. He doesn't do that today.
No.
He only did it back then. So if you're being contacted by spirits or angels, you must be demonic. They must be crazy.
I guess you and I are crazy.
Yep. I know I am because I've seen too much and I know too much.
Yeah.
I've had too many experiences that tell me the world is not what you think it is.
Okay. Now that you and I told our story a little bit here to our listeners and viewers, I want to thank everybody for watching us actually in Facebook Live as well, and also 107.7 up in New Orleans. This is and also want to thank Joe Montaldo for the strong support on UPRN, because basically is one of the I would say one of the most outstanding radio stations going today. I want to talk about a little bit about, let's say, a little bit of the UFO history, because I mean, now Donald Trump's his uncle was involved a lot in the UFOs.
That's right.
Now, not everybody's actually talked about his uncle at all. I mean, even though Donald Trump actually made a statement about a year ago saying that we're going to have a space station in the sky or in space, and I'm sitting there watching and I go like, bullshit, it's already there.
Yeah.
You know, like, no, it's been there for like 50 freaking years, even more. What the hell? Like, what are you talking about? We're going to have one there. But the way it sounded from him, he's making it sound like we're going to go after aliens. Like it's like as if United States owns the universe. Like, nah, that ain't going to happen, buddy.
Right.
You know?
Yep, you're right.
But what I enjoy watching and see what people say, and I already know, because whenever I'm watching a newsreel, suddenly I get the people from the other side, not in spirit, but in the spirit world, in the extraterrestrial world. Ziel comes through me. He works. I can hear him, and in time that I need to hear him, he'll come through. I've had 2 implants put into me, and which apparently it's rare. Only one. Mostly people will only have 1 implant. I end up having 2 put in me, and that means that I have a purpose. And so, whenever I hear them say something to me, I know full well that there's an accomplishment we need to do. Something we need to do to help others know that don't be afraid of what's coming into this world or onto this world, because they are the people that have brought us here from the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So why do we have people so afraid of everything that they call it conspiracy? Why do they want to make up things that call conspiracy? Why do they want to use, like, for example, like you talk about in your book, Matrix of Power, Secrets of the World Control. They talk about symbolisms of crosses. They talk about lawyers and judges and sheriffs, and everything has a symbolism to it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do people always have to have things that are symbolic to make them look powerful?
I think it's not that people need it at all. It's that the higher powers in this universe are putting their imprimatur on you, or on a particular project or a particular company or whatever. So that when you get a tattoo, it's as if somebody is marking you, like they used to do calves. They would, put a hot iron with the letters on it, and they would. I think that's what tattoos are. Somebody is tattooing you and marking you, and they can keep an eye on you because of that tattoo. Therefore, symbols are like that too.
I have a paladin, a knight, on my arm. I've had it on my arm since I was 15. I don't know why I got it tattooed. Now, it is illegal when if you're not old enough to get a tattoo, but I did it myself. I watched a TV show years ago called Paladin. I'm sure you may remember that one. Guy was a cowboy. Paladin, the TV series called Paladin. Okay.
Yeah. Have gun will travel. Have
gun will travel. And for some reason, I was so stuck with that Paladin, the TV series, and I become that person, because not have gun, but have spirit will travel, have work will travel, because that's what I do. But I've got the tattoo on my arm, and I've had it all my life. And then, when they talk about chess and the meaning of chess, you got your knight, you got your rook, which is your priests. Right. You got your king, you got your queen, you got your castle. You got your pawns. Everything has symbolism. And
That's
there's two
right.
sides of the world that are fighting amongst each other. But again, even why would you use the word checkmate?
That's right.
Right? They're either taking you out, or you're just saying, I already have a piece of you now.
Right.
Okay?
And when you're playing checkers, you've got the squares, and so there's a certain amount of squares on one side, there's a certain amount of squares on the other.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to get to the other side and make yourself a king so that you can control the board. But if you're playing on the square, you're playing on the square. But if you turn that square to a little bit, 90 degrees, now it's a point. And you're now not playing on the square, you're playing on the angle. And then you count the squares, and there'll be 32 squares on this angle and 32 squares on this angle. The 32nd degree of Freemasonry. The two heads, two sides of Freemasonry, the 32nd degrees are running both sides. And so it's red and black, and those red and black color is called death head colors. The Nazis use death head colors. Anytime you see red, white, and black, that's called death head colors. The Nazis call it death head colors. It implies death is involved in this symbol if it's red, white, and black. And
amazing.
it's a really interesting story about the symbolism that people have used. And when you're playing games, it's not a game. It's something that's you are being programmed to think in a certain way. Your brain is thinking in a certain way. So you're not listening to a television program. No, the television is programming you how to think, how to react to things.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You know, when he does this and he does that, she says this and she says that, that's how people learn how to relate to each other. They watch a lousy program. That's why we're so screwed up mentally, because we don't know how to act like normal human creatures. We have to watch television to know how to react to something, or how to think about something, because they explain it to you.
Or even our commercials, when they start commercializing supposedly medicines, but they're not. And there's actually a symbolism on the, for even doctors' symbols.
Yeah, that's the what do you call it? The Kundalini going up the spine. It's a straight point with a ball at the top.
Yeah.
And the weaving going up the straight line. That's the Kundalini spirit in your back in your spine, going up your spine to the brain. And it all goes back to the ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Hindus. All of this stuff is very, very ancient and very, very old, and it all has to do with the extraterrestrial life forms, other world entities who have been here for hundreds of thousands of years and giving us our ideas, our education, our knowledge, our technology, our religions, our philosophies, our governments. Everything we've got has been given to us by higher powers. And this is why we are hardwired as humans.
Yeah.
When you want to talk about the higher powers in the universe, we always look out there, the higher power. They're out there. Yeah, they are out there.
Yeah.
They're the ones that created you. And that's why you would naturally think of God. God is out there.
My strongest connection, Jordan, is having to see the Orion's belt.
I know.
Because that's where when I was taken on the ship, I wasn't abducted. They offered me to come for a ride, and I went for a ride, and they showed me. And he says, you're going through Orion's belt, and you're going to another. Like I went into another dimension, like another black hole, so to speak. I went crossover, and I'm in another universe. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And I just go for a ride. They took me right to the planet, and I landed there. And they brought me down, and they took off. But as I'm looking up, I could see the underbelly of the ship, and the underbelly of the ship in the center, the cone of it, It had all multicolored lights, like as if a rainbow spinning.
And what did I say?
Rainbow spinning. That's
all
what I
the
saw.
Multiple colors spinning.
Yeah, that's what I saw. But they had me on the planet, and they got to show me around. But even on the ship itself, they showed me around. And the cool part was having to meet people that they look human like us, but yet they're much taller. 8, 9, 10 feet tall. I asked, well, how many people could be on this ship? And they said we had over 300,000 people on the ship. 300,000.
300,000?
On the ship. And that's not landing on the ground. That stays in the sky or in the space. Then there's other ships that come down that drops you off. So they had me on the ship, from one ship to the next, brought me down. And I thought, okay, so I get to look around. But I really enjoyed observing being on the planet. Their planet is way different. There's no water there. It's silvery liquid. They lost the density of the water due to the wars. They fought amongst each other. And there's other extraterrestrial beings that were fighting amongst each other. And when they had the Great War, they called it the Great War, which happened over 100,000 years before. The reason why, and I got to tell you this right now, the reason why they came to our Earth to rehabitat it, they call it not rehabilitate, there's a name for that, to begin new life, because their planet was dying, and they needed a new green evergreen planet, and they chose it to be. Now, the name Earth is not really the name. It wasn't.
Yeah.
They didn't call it Earth.
Do you recall what the term was?
They call it Yahweh. Yahweh home.
Yahweh is the God of the Hebrews?
Yeah, they call it Yahweh home, but they call it Yahweh home. And it's because when they came down and they landed, and then they started creating different things.
Yeah.
I'm watching this flat screen TV. I mean, you remember now, this is back in 2000. I saw a big, huge flat screen TV, and they show me little things that they've done, and showed them what the Earth looked like. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I was watching, and the whole it looked as if there was like an animation, but they showed all of the things that happened. They showed death. They showed birth. They showed so many different types of beings that were born there. Now, here's one thing that I want to say to you, that you need to know this. I saw centaurs. And they were real. What? Centaurs, half man, half horse. And they were fighting the Greys on our planet. And I don't know which side the centaurs belonged on, but I know the Greys were not well liked, because they were fighting over a crystal. There was some sort of a crystal, and I found out later the crystal itself was called the Ajoite, Ajoite, and it was on the end of a walking staff or a staff. And so I looked at it, and it has a blue or greenish blue hue in the center of it, Ajoite. Yeah. And the centaur himself was the one that it belonged to him. He walked with it, but for some reason the Grey was trying to manipulate his head or brain or thought to hand it over to him, like, I want that. Now, for some reason, I got to observe the battle, but here's the crazy part of it. I felt like I was part of it. Like, I felt like I was already involved in it, like as if they were still reading me, knowing that somehow, what am I doing there? They said, you were there. You observed it. You were part of it. So my life was already in it. I was already participating on this planet already with them. But I wasn't in this form. I was much bigger.
Yeah.
So I was part of them. And I'm thinking, okay, was I a good guy, bad guy? You know, you don't want to be the bad guy, you know. Was I a good guy, bad guy? Oh, you're good. You're fine. You're fine. You got me nervous. Because they talked about, you know exactly you want to be the good guy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. There was more things that I've seen that was so, some people call it fantasy. But here's something that got me, that they showed me, and that is today we see those superheroes in Marvel comics. And they talk about these big mega giants that were supposed to be the bad people. I strongly feel that those mega giants were these guys. That these were called the gods. And they went from planet to populate it. And they were trying to blend in with other groups of people to create creation continuously. Like I kept on telling people, Cro-Magnon man did not come from human. Humankind was born human. That was it. They were not connected from this. We're going to try this one here, and we're going to make him better this way. You didn't come from Cro-Magnon man who had no brain to think for himself. He wasn't hunched over. He didn't have a big jaw. That's one particular species. But humankind was born humankind. That's what I was taught. That was what I was showed. Anytime that I ever went to a church, and churches whenever they brought up something, and they say certain words or certain things about whatever happened to Job, and I'm going like, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, bullshit. I'm sorry, wrong one. No, buddy, that's kind of, in one way I believe it, but the other part I don't. Because everyone had intervention with extraterrestrials. I strongly felt that the Bible had something to do. It's a storybook as far as I'm concerned, yes, but the Bible had something to do with extraterrestrials as well, because there were so many people that were scribers that told the story, what happened maybe from generation to generation, and it is known that the story can get twisted a bit and make it somebody else's way. What I'm going to ask you, Jordan, have you ever had people try to twist that story around to try and manipulate it to the point that we had to believe their way and not what you researched?
I have always been interested in the first couple of chapters. Thank you. I've always been interested in the first couple of chapters in the book of Genesis, because there I was pointed to by a very important rabbi I happened by chance to meet. He was an author, and I wrote him and called him to talk to him about his book. He wrote a book about the Illuminati from a Jewish point of view. And I was fascinated back in 1960 with his book, so I contacted him, and he told me a lot of interesting things about the Jewish understanding of the symbols and the codes that are encoded in the first couple of chapters of Genesis. And so I now have developed an understanding of what's going on and what's being said in the book of Genesis that will knock you out. I would not have known this had I not talked to the rabbi. He pointed it out to me back in 1960. And I was just now starting to get into the Bible. And he pointed out what certain words meant in Hebrew, and he explained to me that there is no Hebrew language. There is a Phoenician language, and the Phoenician people speak this Phoenician language. But today the Hebrews speak the Phoenician language, so we call it Hebrew. No, it's the Hebrew people who are speaking the language. The language is not Hebrew. They are the Hebrews, but they're speaking another language called Phoenician, which gives us our word phonics and phonic, Phoenician. And so he explained to me what Genesis 1, the first chapter, first 1 or 2 chapters was talking about. And it's a completely different story than anything most Christians have ever heard. Most Christians and Jews have never heard the correct understanding of how it's to be broke down because of terms and words that were used. And he told me, and I remember many years ago, he told me, there is no place in the Old Testament Bible, what you Christians call Old Testament. There's nothing in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew scriptures, that says God made man. That's your idea. Christianity came up with that idea. There's nothing in the Old Testament that says God made man. God did not make man, period. And we know that because the word man in Hebrew, or in the Phoenician language, the word for man is I-S-H, ish. I-S-H is ish, means man or men, plural or singular. And so if you read in Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Rabbi said that's not what it says. That's not what it says in the old Phoenician language. Go back and read it again, and it doesn't say that. That's what it was translated into English. That's why the king said, King James said, this is the authorized version. That's why the Bible is called the authorized, King James authorized version. That's the version he authorized you to read. He didn't authorize you to go poking your nose in the other things that he didn't tell you about. You're authorized as a servant and a subject. You're authorized by the king to read this stuff, to read this book here. You're not authorized to go sticking your nose into something you don't belong to, and go looking at the secrets that the Jews have known for 1,000 years. So
why is the Bible always being changed all the time? Because I mean, I know there's an area in it that one of the parts of the area in the Bible says beware of the psychic, and yet that word was never in there before. Because that actually, the word psychic is, as far as I understand, is a Greek word. What's that got to do with a Greek word doing in a Hebrew Bible?
You're right. That's exactly right.
You know,
and you begin to see that there's a lot of things that have been put into the Bible and translated into English. That's why we don't understand it. And that's why you can go from one church to the next. It doesn't matter which denomination. Go from one church to the next, and every time the churches will have a different understanding of what the scripture says. Why? Because nobody knows what it says. Nobody's ever even taken the time to read it and study the words. It's an etymology of the darkness of the words that are used. And that's why you're never going to get the truth in a church. The very word church comes from a Knights Templar term that was used by the Masonic Order of Knights Templars back in the 4th, 5th, and 6th and 7th century A.D. And that's interesting when you find out where the word church comes from, what it really means. And it doesn't mean what you think it does. It doesn't mean a collection of people who are worshiping God. No, that's not what it means. Church comes from the word Circe, C-E-R-E-S, Circe. Mother Circe. Circe was a goddess, a Greek goddess in the Middle East that were worshipped by the Arabs. And when the Knights Templars went into Jerusalem during the Crusades, like any other army going into a battle in another country, the Knights Templars learned a lot about the enemies they were fighting. They learned about their women, they learned about the drink and what they ate, they learned about what they believe and how they think, they learned about their war tactics. So the Knights Templar Masonic Order, who was cleaning out Jerusalem for Rome, getting all the Islamic people out of the area for the Pope, they learned a lot from their enemies. They learned what the enemies drank. They learned about their women. They learned about how to raise their children. They learned all kinds of ideas and customs from the people they were fighting. And so one of the most important things that the Knights Templars brought back with them after the Crusade was the worship of a woman, a worship of a female goddess. Her name was Circe in Greek. The Greek Circe gives us our word circle, circumvent, and what's the other word? Circle, circumvent, circus comes from Circe. And so the idea was that Circe, according to, if you go back to the Greek Greek mythology, Circe was a woman goddess. And so they called her Mother Circe. And so Mother Circe became, when the Knights Templars came back, they went to Scotland. And in Scotland, Circe was called Kirk, K-E-R-K, or K-I-R-K. And so Mother Circe becomes Mother Kirk. And Mother Kirk in English is church, C-H-U-R-C-H. So Mother Church is Mother Circe, which is Mother Circe, a Greek goddess from the ancient Middle East. And Mother Circe, if you go back to the mythology books, read up about Mother Circe, Mother Circe was a goddess who was able to hypnotize people with candles and incense and all kinds of strange mystical incantations. She could mystify people and bring them into her home. She would what's the word? Take over their minds, mind control.
Hypnotize.
Through magic. Hypnotize is what I was looking for. And she would bring them into her house, according to the story of Mother Circe. She would bring them into her house, then close the door behind her friends that she brought in, and lock the door so they can't get out. And then she would take their brains, take their minds, and they would totally lose their minds. And then she would eat them. She'd live off of them.
Wow.
And then when she got hungry again, she'd open up the door and bring in some more people and bring them in and close the door and lock it, and then take their brains out so that they could not find their way out. They couldn't do anything because their brains are gone. And then she'd feed off of them. She'd eat them. So that's Mother Circe, Mother Kirk, or Mother Church. And that's what Mother Church does. She uses her magic, her lights, her candles, and all the beautiful spiritual stuff in the church to mystify people. And they get hypnotized, and they think they're doing something very holy to go to church. And then once they're in church, Mother Circe locks the door behind them and takes their brains out. So now they go to church and they become brainless. They can't think. They can't read. They don't know they don't know what they're doing. They have got no idea about the words or what the words mean, where the ideas have come from. All they know is they just go to church, and that makes them feel good. That makes them feel good.
What about
Mother Church?
What about the Holy Cross? Everyone uses the. I mean, I have one. I wear my cross on my ear. It's a small cross on my ear and my jewelry. But do you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the cross itself has been used in so many religions.
Yeah.
All kinds of Greek religions, to Roman theologies, to Egyptians, to the Medo-Persians, to Babylonians, all over the world, different religions have used the cross. The cross has been around for a long time. And it basically is a cross between north, south, east and west.
Yeah.
And so it's northeast, south, northeast, west, and south. That's in the ancient world. That's where we get the word news, N-E-W-S. Northeast, west, and south is news. Anything that happens in northeast, west, or south is news, N-E-W-S. It's a very interesting story. Far too big to talk about on one show. about religion, about theology and religion. It's a hell of a subject. But again, going back to Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." It doesn't say that in the original, what we call the original Hebrew, the Old Testament. It doesn't say that in the Old Testament. Because God in the Old Testament, the Jews will spell God E-L. L is God. E-L, simple. E-L is God in Hebrew. But that's not what it says in Genesis 1:1. It doesn't say in the beginning El created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say that. It says actually, if you go back to the Old Testament in a Jewish Bible, it says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Not El, Elohim. Elohim is a Hebrew word which any rabbi will tell you means God in the plural, the gods, more than one. It's like taking an S on the end of a word car. Car is one, comma S becomes cars, more than one. Well, in Hebrew, you take El, which is God, and you add the word Lohim, which in Hebrew means in the plural, more than one. So the correct interpretation in the King James Bible, the correct interpretation should be, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth.
And
not God.
And the earth
gods.
took form.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the next sentence says, and the earth was without form and void. It doesn't say that in Hebrew. The word without form and void was translated from the Hebrew word tohu vavohu. Look it up in a Hebrew dictionary and look it up in a Hebrew Bible. Tohu vavohu. Ancient word in the ancient world that was mistranslated, and the earth was without form and void. No, tohu vavohu was used twice in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean without form and void. Tohu vavohu means became a waste and a desolation. Not was created without form and void. I mean, what does that mean? The earth was without form and void. What do you mean the earth was void?
Especially when they use pictures, or in the movies, it shows you nothing but clouds and the mist, and there is no world, and next thing you know, there's Adam and Eve laying there on the ground right after that, and going like, really? There's like one white-colored, like a tan-colored Adam and a tan-colored Eve, and that's it? It doesn't make any sense, because the way I grew up learning that there were so many Adams and Eves that helped create mankind, it was not just the one.
That's right. So many times.
What does, I got one of our chat room people, we got friends in our chat room asking questions. They want to ask a question, and they said, one person, Vivian, says, what does Jordan think of people who don't believe in religion but do believe in God?
Well, that sounds like me.
Okay.
There's nothing to believe in. That's the way I think. I have the highest respect and admiration. Respect and not fear, but admiration and respect for the divine spiritual presence in the universe that other people call God. I don't know what God is. All I know about God is he's not on television on Sunday. That's all I know. But I believe that there is a very powerful force in the universe that we are not, we don't have anything to do with that brilliant power in the universe that causes things to happen. But it is all-knowing and all-encompassing, and it's a very powerful force in the universe. And that's what people call God.
Everyone believed that George Burns was God.
Yeah,
for the longest time.
That was what. But God is simply the word dog spelled backwards. So you got church dogma. Dog spelled backwards is God. And you take the word good, and the root word for good goes back to G-O-O-D, good. Take an O out of good becomes God. God is good. And the devil is simply taking a D, as in David, the letter D, and put it in front of the word evil. Becomes devil. Devil is evil, God is good. Just words.
Just words.
All it is. But when it says that the earth was without form and void, no, the correct interpretation of tohu vavohu is that God created the gods created the heavens and the earth became a waste and a desolation. That's what tohu vavohu means. It became a waste and a desolation. And there are two places in the Old Testament where tohu vavohu is used. The other place is in the book of, I think it's Jeremiah, the 4th chapter. In the Old Testament book of Jeremiah, if I'm correct on that. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But I think it's in the Old Testament book of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah, the prophet, says, I was laying on my bed and I had a dream. Almighty God gave me a dream, and I saw the earth. And the earth was a beautiful paradise. He said, I saw the earth. God let me see the earth. And it was a beautiful paradise with gorgeous and beautiful cities and beautiful animals and beautiful birds. But there was no man. There was no man, no human. But it was a beautiful cities and beautiful animals and beautiful birds. It was a wonderful paradise. Well, I'm asking the question, if there was no man, who built the beautiful cities?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it says, then he says, the prophet says, and as I saw this beautiful creation, this beautiful cities, all of a sudden I saw tohu vavohu. There it is again. Tohu vavohu. So what the prophet was saying is that I was looking and God let me see the world when it was a beautiful paradise with beautiful animals and large cities. And then the earth became a waste and a desolation. The earth itself became a horrible devastation, implying there must have been some kind of a nuclear holocaust on the earth, or the earth bounced off another planet, or some terrible tragedy that nobody could imagine how horrible it was to see a beautiful paradise earth becoming a waste and a desolation.
That's something that they told me, Jordan. I remember that day they told me, because I asked them. They told me that the dinosaurs and the dragons did exist, and mankind existed at the same time as the dragons.
That's right.
And man exists at the same time as the dinosaurs. That humankind still lived when dinosaurs walked the earth. Not Cro-Magnon man, human, right? Also,
that's right.
Because they were there, they said that's where the great wars were fighting amongst each other. There was a fight in fighting. Like there is the people that were warmongers and the wars that are peacekeepers, and there was a fight among each other, and that's what caused the earth to even have explosions. And they were blaming, saying, "Oh well, it was a volcano maybe," or no, the freaking ships are coming down shooting at them. And they're trying to boom, 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 and the dinosaurs are dying because they blew up because their lasers and technology was way high above others, and they're trying to kill off.
It was some kind of a awesome nuclear war going on between the gods.
Yes.
Them from out there. They are using weapons you don't even want to know about.
No, and that's what I tell people today. You know, you think... Like when I learned from Ziel, when he told me this, I mean, everyone besides just him, they all said, they will not let Earth use nuclear weapons. You can build it all you want, but you trying to shoot it, there's no way it's going to go anywhere. They will interfere and stop it from happening. And they already came in, they said that they've already come down and they've already exploded, knocked off a few other rockets already. And they're making sure they never, because if, he says, once we use one nuclear rocket, no matter if it's an experiment on the land, we all perish, and it screws up the rest of the universe because it destroys everything that's above that. It turns itself into a what do you say? It's a
well, I think the experiment,
a ripple experiment.
The experiment in Europe called CERN.
Yeah.
Is giving us that same kind of scientific information today. Something so minutely tiny that you can't even see it.
Yeah.
But if it hits another one, it causes a chain reaction throughout universe.
Yeah.
And that you could end up theoretically exploding the whole of creation.
And then nothing
by messing.
Yeah.
By messing
We've already done it twice. They said we screwed up twice. We human beings already screwed up twice. They're talking about the First World War. They're talking about the Second World War. They don't want a Third World War. Nostradamus predicted it could be a Third World War. He didn't say it was going to happen. All
That's
they
right.
said was, that's what they showed me, don't let this happen. Let everyone know this is what you got to do. Start taking care of the earth. If you don't
But
take
that's
care of
why
it,
the top of the line politicians know that there's a higher power in this universe, and they're messing with it. They've been trying to duplicate it. They're trying to duplicate the presence of God. And I'm saying that, no, you better go back and do your homework on what the words in the Old Testament mean. It's something very, very scary going on here. Mankind is getting ready to mess his whole creation up. The whole destiny of the planet
yeah,
is now in the hands of mentally deranged morons that we call scientists. They're not scientists. They're mentally deranged, and they're mentally incredible criminal minds are trying to one-upmanship in their wars and their bloodshed and their violence. But somebody is watching us, and one day soon somebody's going to intervene in our behalf, and they're going to intervene in mankind's affairs, and you don't want to be alive to see it when it happens.
Nope.
My gut feeling is that it's coming soon.
yeah, we are warned, and we have to protect
We've
this
been
land.
warned. Yep.
We have been warned. This is our third time around, because we're not coming back the second time, or third time.
Yep.
I remember, I'm going to bring this up because I think that you may have a meaning to this or understanding of this. In the Second World War, and everybody talks about, I have a very good friend of mine, is actually, her name is Zanka. She's actually on our chat room right now. She and her family, or she herself, went down to the Auschwitz camp and in Germany. And one thing reminded me of that story because you remember the Jews wore the yellow star on their clothing, and why a yellow star on the clothing? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and what does the Star of David go back to? The Star of David was never used in Judaism only until the 18th century A.D., a couple hundred years ago. The Zionists picked a star and called it the Star of David. It was not used in the ancient world at all. The only people in the ancient world who used the Star of David were the Hindus. It was a Hindu symbol. And if you look in the encyclopedias of the Star of David, you will see that the Hindus called it the Star of Saturn. It was called the Saturnian Star, the Saturn, Star of Saturn. That's a whole different story than what we've been told.
The other part I want to ask you is when they talk about the sheriff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the star is similar to that. Does it have a purpose? Does it have the same meaning or similar thereof?
Yep, the sheriff's star is a six-pointed star. A six-pointed star is called a hex, H-E-X, in Latin.
Okay.
In English, hex becomes S-E-X, sex.
Okay.
And that opens up a whole new field of endeavor and research when you go back to the six-pointed star and how the ancient peoples in India, they said the six-pointed star represented the planet Saturn. And Saturn is today referred to as Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's...
Saturn is a divine god. He's the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Men were told in the ancient world when you get married before your God. So you wear a wedding ring, an engagement ring. Women were supposed to listen to their God. So you wear an ear ring.
I got my earrings. I listen to God. Yeah.
You just listen to God.
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting story because today Judaism all over the world, the Jews today all over the world worship the planet Saturn. Saturn is referred to as the Jewish god today. And his name is El. This is why you have a Temp El. Temp El means the house of El.
House of El, temple, Temple, okay.
The Temp El, and this is why on the side of your head is your Temp El.
That's the leader. Okay. The thinker. Someone used a phrase one day, and it's been a lot of years since I've heard it, chasing the moon.
That's what Judaism used to do, was chase the moon. That's why today, even today, Judaism is an eclectic religion. Judaism is the most eclectic religion on the earth today. It's the only one I know of that. Eclectic simply means like a smorgasbord. You go down the smorgasbord and pick what you like and get it, and then pick this, pick that, and leave that alone, leave that one alone, but pick this one. And so now when you got the whole thing all covered, now you buy it. You buy the smorgasbord. So this is what Judaism is. You pick different things from different cultures and put it into one religion and call it Judaism. So Judaism is the combination of moon worship, when they were chasing the moon. This is why you have the word synagogue. All over the world, the word synagogue is S-Y-N-A, synagogue. But in Israel, synagogue is spelled S-I-N-A, synagogue. Why? Because S-I-N is the name of the moon god in Arabia. In Arabia, there was an ancient moon god. His name was Sin, S-I-N. And he lived in a mountain because the people in the Egyptian side, looking to the east, every evening at 6 o'clock, the moon would rise from the mountain. So they called the moon the old man of the mountain. Their god was called Sin. The old man, his name was Sin. And he lived in the mountain, obviously, because every night he came up from the mountain. No, it was just the moon was rising. But the ancient people didn't realize that. They thought the moon was living in the mountain. So every night about 6 o'clock, the moon would come out. So then they were now worshipers of the moon. All the holy days and all their days and the holy days started after 6 o'clock. Today, the Jews still have their days beginning after 6. The holy days are after 6 o'clock. Why? Because that's when the moon came out. After 6 o'clock, the moon rose, and his name was Sin. So the house of Sin was called the synagogue. S-I-N, Sin, synagogue. And this is why Sin lived in a mountain, and in the ancient Arabic world, the word mountain was A-I. So you take Sin, S-I-N, and A-I becomes Mount Sinai. Sinai is Sin Ai, or the god of the mountain Ai. His name was Sin. It becomes Sinai. So when you hear the Jews talk about Mount Sinai, it's a holy Mount Sinai. No, it's just the worship of the moon god Sin in the mountain called Ai. Sin Ai becomes Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is the mountain where the moon gods lived. So you need to understand where all this religious stuff comes from.
I'll tell you one thing too, where I learned also from Ziel, he said one of the mothers, or he calls it the mother, the woman who helped bring in humankind, her name was Sin.
Yeah.
But her name Sin meant half-breed. That means that she was fornicating, I guess you're saying she was actually loving human man, and she admired humankind because they were beautiful men. She would actually have babies or children, and then she would bring her maidens, her young ladies, her daughters with her, and they would all make babies with our human earth kind beings, right? Not everybody was born from a freaking little bottle and say, here, we're going to shake this up and have some babies. It was done naturally. Yeah. But what he did say was, reason why they call this, so the name Sin was never a wrong name. It meant half-breed. So for some reason, the priests turned around and called it sin, that you did something wrong, you committed sin. And I don't believe that. Anytime that we do something wrong, it's a decision we make, but it's not a sin. It's actually, it means that, what would you do? Like make love with a woman, you committed sin? No, you made love to a woman because you're having a child, and that child may be born of another race, but it's not a sin. It means, which to her, it meant half-breed. That means you're born in a different part of the world. You're not going to be fully grown tall like a 9-10 foot tall giant. You're going to be born half the size or part of the size, so you become a human being. There are people that are in this world that are 8 feet tall, but have not grown any taller than they have. Those are part of the ancestral genomes
right. They're part of the ancestral humanoids.
Yeah,
that's right.
They're part of that, and scientists can do they can say all they want. Oh, the DNA says this. There's a problem with that, and it's broken down. And there's some people actually are growing much taller, and they don't know why it won't stop. It's because their DNA still wants to grow. They want to be like want to be like the ancestor that was 25 feet tall.
You're right.
Right? But even though they're saying their limbs could not handle it because of the gravity on the planet. One thing that Zale said, the gravity on their planet is heavier than the planet gravity here. When they wore their hoods, okay, they're giant masks, they're oval like an alien head. It was white. They wore a white uniform. The eyes were black, very much like this, okay? That's what it pretty well almost looked like that, Jordan. Okay, but but a little bit bigger. And I thought they were like an extraterrestrial, but when they took off their face, like the hood should say, the mask, they were human, blonde hair, blue eyes, light blue eyes, very light blue eyes, and he had a beard, right? And I was quite surprised to see him look like he was he was very tall. I mean, look at this, like, oh, wow, this guy's really tall. I met a few basketball players, but this guy's really tall. And, but yet, it was so impressive, and yet he knew me. But I said to him, I said, well, why do you wear this mask? This is the important part. I said, why do you wear this mask? He said, this sun's rays hurts their eyes. Mm-hmm. They cannot handle it. Our sun has been deteriorated so badly from using all kinds of chemicals in the air that it just radiates back and causes a vapor over the sun. So it all from the natural sun's rays. When they're telling people don't go into the sun, it's going to cause you skin cancer. No, it's not the sun. It is the chemicals that's in the air that mixes from the sun. What you put you put on your skin from the sun is natural. It has a proper ultraviolet color. That's why humankind never had those textures. Now, mind you, sometimes the sun was really, really hot, and some people had to wear something to cover their skin so they wouldn't burn, so to speak. So they would use red ochre, which is a red clay, and they would make a paste out of it, and they put it on their body to keep from burning if it's 125 in heat. So it depends on which color tone your skin is. That's exactly how they would treat it. But like he said, their eyes could not handle it. Oxygen's fine. It's the eyes. He said the gravity is different. It's a little different than it is where they are. And I did feel the gravity difference because when I got on up there, I felt like my head was pushing down like this a bit. Like I felt like, oh crap, this is weird, right? So what they had to do, they had to put this silver thing, it looked like a small little tiny instrument, and they put it inside my nasal passage, and so I can breathe better. So that's why I said I have 2 implants, one behind my thigh, one inside of here, and that helped me breathe. And so after I was done being on their planet, they brought me back home, and I went home, and I got up, and I thought I'm going to go for a shower, and I had a shower, and when I was in the shower and I sneezed in the shower, and when I sneezed, this silvery material or silvery liquid came out of my nasal passage, and basically, whatever was the the moisture of the heat of it let go, and it all mixed up with my nasal passage, but it mixed with the water, and drained out. But it felt really weird because after it was in my nasal passage, and after I sneezed, it felt so much pressure back here, like it was really harsh. And so I had a doctor look at me later on, and he says, "There's something wrong with your nasal passage." He says, you got something a little nodular higher on one side than the other, which makes sense, but I can breathe really well here, but I can't breathe too well there. So I said to the guy, I said to Zale, "Do you want me to take it out?" "No, because you're coming back up again. Why would you want to take it out if you want to come and visit again?" I went, "Okay, leave it there." I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
So, so the thing is that when we talk about sin, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, there's when you mention sin, and then when I bring in that same similar story, every name has a purpose. Every name, there's so many people out there right now today that are trying to let the public know what's going on around on this earth, in the atmosphere, and they keep talking about, the word Illuminati has been around for a long, long time. And we would hear it, and yet some people will say, well, do we trust the word Illuminati, or do we don't want to trust it? Do we? And then they're starting to see things that are made, are developed and built and put into airports, and some of these paintings look very, very horrible. It's all to do with death, and scary. And now somebody just finished putting up some sort of a statue of the devil, a devil serpent, outside near another statue that I think it had something to do with Jesus, I think. But apparently now there's a group of people that want to idolize that statue more than our or anything to do with God. Does that make any sense to you? Why they're doing this?
I understand that, because now you're talking about Luciferianism.
Yeah. And
you're hearing the term Lucifer. But in the Bible, Lucifer is Jesus. Jesus said, "I am Lucifer." It's in the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
So people are talking about Lucifer representing the devil. No, Lucifer is a name for Jesus. Go back to Revelation, the book of Revelation 22:10. I think it's Revelation 22:16. 22nd chapter, 16th verse. Revelation 22:16. And read it, where Jesus said, "I, Jesus, I am the offspring of David. I am the bright morning star." Period. End of sentence. I, Jesus, say, "I am the offspring of David, and I am the bright morning star." By it, the little asterisk, and you go back to the Bible Encyclopedia, look up bright morning star. It says Lucifer. Lucifer is the bright morning star. Well, Jesus said in Revelation, "I am the bright morning star." So what he's saying is, I am Lucifer. But Lucifer does not mean the devil.
So why are they assimilating or associating the name Lucifer to that statue?
Because the Catholic Church, when it was translating into the vernacular, into Latin, Saint Jerome made a mistake. He translated the word bright morning star because he mixed it up with Isaiah. Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah. What is it? Isaiah 14:12. I think it's Isaiah 14:12, where in the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, it says, "Oh, how you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the dawn." And so old Lucifer was the planet Venus. Venus was called Lucifer in Latin. In the old Roman Empire, they would go out and study the stars. And that first star that comes up in the morning was called the bright morning star.
Yeah.
And so the Latin word for bright morning star was Helio, was Helio or Lucifer. And the Hebrews, the Jews, called that bright morning star Helio, Heliel. Helio was the bright morning star, or Venus, but the Latins they called it Lucifer. So Lucifer was the bringer of the dawn. He was the bringer of light. So Lucifer became the holder of the light, the one who brought light into the world. Illuminati. He brought light into the world. Well, Lucifer was the planet Venus, and Venus is not the God's son. It's not the great light of the earth, like Jesus is called God's son, the light of the world. Lucifer is not the light of the world, but Lucifer announces the coming of the light of the world. Because the early times in the ancient Egyptians, when the priests were looking eastward at 4 o'clock in the morning, the priest would be there at 4 o'clock in the morning at the temple watching for that bright morning star. And about 4:15, a bright star would rise. They called him the bright morning star. But that bright morning star was the planet Venus. And the reason why it was so bright, because it was so close to the sun, and the sun was shining right on it, reflecting to us. So we're seeing a bright morning star, and the Romans called the bright morning star Lucifer. So today when you read in Revelation 22:16, where Jesus said, Jesus, I am the offspring of David, and I am the bright morning star, period. Look up bright morning star in the Bible dictionary. It will tell you Lucifer. And the Catholic Church and all the biblical encyclopedias, you read the biblical concordance encyclopedias, and look up Lucifer. It will tell you all the different biblical encyclopedias that you can find in the seminaries. They all say the same thing. Lucifer is actually Jesus. I didn't say that. The encyclopedias say that. Yeah,
that's good. There's people starting rumors that Jesus was a hybrid, part alien, part human. I mean, we all are, right?
We all are.
Yeah, but they're making it where it's just a recent thing. Now, they also talk about the second coming of Christ. They brought that in as well. They keep bringing that up. And I remember my mom years ago when I was a kid growing up, and you see these guys walking around with these signs, the world's coming to an end, the world's coming to an end. And I remember being a kid watching this, and I said to my mom, I'm like, why do people carry these signs? And then when I'm a young adult or young man growing up, I'm still seeing these young guys. I was always somebody new. Every generation is wearing these bloody signs, running around, the world's coming to an end. Now, I know very well it's not a common church that's telling them the world's coming to an end. It's got to be somebody that's hell-bent on trying to get people scared or trying to...
Well, you've got to find out that the word coming to an end, the world is coming to an end, is a mistranslation of the early Greek words. The world coming to an end, the very word world, W-O-R-L-D, is a mistranslation of a word in Greek. The Greek word is aeon, A-E-O-N. Aeon in Greek is mistranslated today as world. So then when you read in the Bible where Jesus said, I am with you, go forth and make us apostles and do this and do that and teach the people, and I will be with you to the end of the world. No, that's not what it says. Go back and read it in Greek. The original language said, I will be with you to the end of the aeon, not world. That was a mistranslation. Aeon in Greek means age, A-G-E. That's what the word aeon means. The Greek word aeon means the end of an age. So therefore, what Jesus is saying, go forth, make apostles and make disciples, and teaching them, and I will be with you to the end of the age, not the end of the world. The word world is aeon, a Greek word, which any Greek teacher will tell you. The word aeon means the end of an age. An age is 2,150 years long. 2,150 years long is the length of an age. This is why in the Old Testament Joseph has 12 brothers of Joseph, or the 12 tribes of Israel, or the 12 apostles of Christ, or the 12 kings of Jerusalem, or the 12 great prophets of the Bible. Everything is done in sequence of 12. Why? Because 12 is based on the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 months of the year are the 12 followers of God's Son. Ask yourself the question, who owns the Son? Everybody on the earth thinks they own the whole universe, but nobody on the earth can say they own the Son. So supposedly, theoretically, I guess you could say that God owns the Son, since we don't own it. And so if it's God owns the Son, then the Son belongs to God. It's his Son. So we say God's Son is the light of the world. Jesus is called God's Son,
Mm-hmm.
the light of the world. Of course the Sun is the light of the world. What else lights the world if it isn't the Sun?
Or just turn the light bulb on. We got some ions.
That's right. And O-N is light in Egyptian. The Egyptian word for light is O-N. So when you have a new light, a new kind of light, Neo is called Neo.
Mm.
Then you take N-E-O-N is neon. Neon is new kind of light. So we had
amazing, I just
the
said that.
regular light bulbs, and now you come up with a new thing called neon. Neon was a new light. On is light in Egyptian. This is why, I mean, it's a very, very big story about all the religions of the ancient world. I've been looking at this stuff for 60 years.
Yeah.
And going through and researching word after word, terms and ideas and concepts and symbols for over 60 years, while most people haven't spent 60 minutes. And so people think I'm crazy because I'm telling them things they've never heard before. Why? Because I've spent 60 years of research what the words mean. Most people haven't spent 60 minutes or 60 seconds on it.
We've got a lot of new generations now that are willing to listen to you now, and to, you know, like, I remember watching I just finished watching one of your older videos back in the 70s. That you're telling the story, sharing some stories regarding the meanings of, and I thought, oh, this is cool. But for some reason, you know, I find that sometimes people will always miss a generation where some of the, like, you know, you'll always have a certain generation say, well, okay, I'll only trust this, or I'll only trust that, or do I believe this? And I know very well you're going to have your hecklers, because there's people out there that are trying to prove you're wrong. I've seen it one video a few days ago. This one guy is just trying to prove you're wrong. Like, oh, no, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's trying to heckle you. And they're going like, buddy, you're not even close. But, you know, but I mean, the thing is that I very adamantly have trusted your abilities. I've admired your work, even though for a short time. But your name has always come up for so many years, but I've never thought of looking you up to see what you're all about until, like I said before, having to meet Johnny Enoch, a good friend of ours. Having to meet him is what got me to say, you know what, maybe there's something about this guy that I need to find out. So when I started learning things about you, you and I are so similar to each other regarding the UFOs and us having to be in connection thereof to it. And you and I are going to be in Laughlin, Nevada.
Yeah, sure.
February 15th to the 22nd, right. Folks, next year, 2020, we're going to be there. We're going to be at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. And if you guys are interested and want to come down and be part of it, there are tickets available for that. You can go online. That's LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Bob Brown and his wife wife Heather will be there. They're the ones that are running it. Johnny Enoch. There's a lot of people that are on board. Johnny Enoch's going to be there. Also do a presentation. Myself, I've been asked to come up and do a presentation. So guess what, folks? It's been my first one regarding my experience for what I went through. And then having our great friend and I would call him mentor because you are a great mentor, Jordan Maxwell. He's going to be there. Jordan's going to be there as well. And
I'm going to be speaking on a subject that nobody's heard before about what's really going on in this world.
Yeah. So it's going to be something brand new. No one's ever spoken about. I have a bit of an idea what it might be, but I'm not going to say a word because Johnny has not told me. And but I'm looking forward to even seeing it, the presentation, because we need to open more eyes. And that's what I find is important. We need to open more eyes and ears, because those people sometimes are going like, oh, I'm not sure. And there's one thing I did say to Johnny, and I'm going to use this. Both you and I could probably use the same phrase. I'm going to ask people how many people have ever been either abducted or taken on a ship, and I'm going to ask them to raise their hands. So they're going to raise their hands. How many people have actually had an experience of UFOs being examined on the table? And then the third question I'm going to ask is how many of you are aliens in this room? We're going to get a response because they're going to go like, what are you talking about? Who's an alien? Well, we're not talking about Mexico. We're talking about us. We're talking about, there are people. I know very well there are going to be some people in there, and I know there'll be some government official people there. They're going to be watching us really close to see what we're going to do.
Well, they're really going to enjoy what I'm going to talk about. If there are government people there, they're going to be ecstatic.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to talk about the government in such a way that nobody's ever heard about it. Nobody.
Yeah. But we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for Jordan, because we're going to actually, like I said, you want to shock them and we're going to let them know what's going on in the future. But we got a couple, right now we're in the month of October. So we got November, December, January, and then you got your February. So you got almost 3.5 months, folks, to make a decision to get your tickets to go down to Laughlin, Nevada. I'm going to be there. Jordan's going to be there. Johnny's going to be, Enoch's going to be there. And sure.
Laughlin, Nevada is about 50 miles south of Las Vegas. It's on the Colorado River, called Laughlin, Nevada. And that's where it's going to be, at the Aquarius Hotel. How
far is the late Art Bell buried? Again, that's Pahrump, Nevada. How far is that from Laughlin, do you think?
I would say because it was right next. Pahrump was right next door to Las Vegas. You walk out the front door, Vegas, and walk out the back door is Pahrump.
No.
So it was about 60 miles south of Pahrump.
I might make a trip out there to go see Art Bell's site. I might make a trip. I got some time, go out there and see him.
If it still exists, because it may be gone by now. He passed a while back.
Yeah, there's a guy that went out there just about a month ago and found his gravesite and his original first wife's gravesite next to each other. So I would say he's probably one of the original guys that really made darn sure that this is why we need to get the word out in public. And because he ran the original show called Coast to Coast AM. If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have people like myself or Jordan. And here's the cool part, folks. I used to work at 1410 Sea Fun, Talk with Attitude here in Vancouver years back when Art was going. And I was on 1 hour before he was, because he ran out of our station. He actually did a show out of our, not out of our station, but the audio feed. He was actually online on our station. So I had my show Between Two Worlds Radio, and then he came on right after that. So it was following up. That was so cool. So yeah. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank you so much, Jordan. If they want to find you, how can they find you?
Go on my website, but there are different websites on the web with my name on them. I only have one. Others are not mine, so don't go to them. My website is Jordan Maxwell Show, spelled S-H-O-W. Jordan Maxwell Show at JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's my website.
Yeah.
When you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see a little banner and a little link and a banner that says Jordan Maxwell Research Society. Click on that and you will see that I have a second website called Jordan Maxwell Research Society. And on that, I'm uploading every day all of my old research, all the stuff on audios and videos and lectures and research words and terms and pictures and all the fraud and the lies that have been going on for thousands of years. So that's where I'm putting all my research. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, and for the first time in your life, begin to see all the things which have been hidden from you, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and click on the Jordan Maxwell Research Society and join it. You have to join the Research Society.
I recommend it, folks. I recommend it.
And the reason why you have to join it is because my attorneys told me the kind of information you're putting out there on the web is going to get you in trouble. If you put this kind of information out there, that's what my attorneys told me. You're going to get yourself in trouble by telling people the stuff you're telling them. But if it's put into a private research venue, you'll be okay, because this is what they told me. If you go into a restaurant with, say, 5 or 6 friends, and you're going to have dinner, and you go in the back part of the restaurant, and you sit with your group and your party, you can use any words you want, any curse words you want. You can call anybody any derogatory term you want. You can say anything you want to say, that your friends will put up with. But you can say whatever you want as long as it's in private, just among you and your friends. The government has nothing to say about private conversation.
Yeah.
But if you go out on the radio or get on a apple cart at the park and start telling the world what you talked about with your friends in the restaurant, that's not going to fly. You're going to go to jail. They're going to do something for you. They're going to put you in jail. You can't talk like that in public. You can talk like anything you please in private. You say anything you can come up with. They don't care, as long as it's in private. But if you go out on the radio or go out in the public and start talking that way, they will arrest you. Why? Because government is empowered to protect the public. And so they can protect the public from hearing your filthy language and your dirty mouth. They protect the public from hearing you. But if you do it in private, they can't say anything. So that's why the attorneys told me, you better have a second website that you're putting your information on, because you're going to get in trouble if it's just put out there for the public to go see for free. You better put it into a private venue.
So now you got to register, folks. We're going to call ourselves a night. But thank you, Jordan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Folks, this has been, I'm your host, Eric White Sky Cloud. Thank you for joining Between Two Worlds Radio. I'll talk to you guys next week on the UPRN Radio Network. Take care, guys.
Let's do it again.